Andy Signore has been caught lying by a Florida judge who ruled that he's not a journalist, his communications are not privileged, and he wasn't honest about the status and nature of his business. So here's the thing now, if he's prepared to lie to a court, do you think he's being honest with his audience when he tells them he's making a documentary in support of Justin Baldoni and he needs donations? Because according to the judge, the people who he's reached out to, who worked on the set of Justin Baldoni's movie It Ends With Us, and asked for their experience, did not reply. So maybe these people might want to ask for their money back. Because Andy Signore has made a ton of money and content via his Popcorn Planet YouTube channel on the back of the so-called drama surrounding that movie that has been going on since August 2024.
And you are not hampering my buzz. Look at this view. I'm going to enjoy this drink. I'm going to go back to it without any worries whatsoever. I get to monetize while on vacation now. Thanks to you, Blake, bringing this in and defaming me. We will have an official response from our lawyer on the docket this week, so stay tuned. You are allowed to push back.
It's funny how he says he's allowed to push back when he's not a named party in this lawsuit. He's someone who can provide evidence of whether there was a retaliation campaign or not, orchestrated in the media by Melissa Nathan and her company Tag PR, who Justin Baldoni hired. And in a text message, she called him Popcorn Planet, my new bestie. If he wanted to show Justin Baldoni's innocence, why would he not hand over that information? Isn't that what's meant to happen in a documentary? You show the evidence? But Andy Signore's focus has been more on whether Blake Lively had makeup on her dress and asking his audience if he should knock on the door of her old set house like a weird stalker. And he wasted no time teaming up with Shusty Floor, who's also made hundreds of videos about Blake Lively. But rather than prove Blake Lively wrong and show there was no retaliation, these people have been obstructing the legal process and calling her a bully. And when a real journalist who works for a news organisation, NBC, writes an article about how he uses his platform to attack female celebrities, when he has his own history of harassment to his staff and audience, which he himself admitted to, he calls her journalism a hit piece. And it's funny how he uses an image of himself in that thumbnail with a lot less weight than he has in real life. So let's talk about why the judge denied his motion to quash his subpoena for this case with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. Blake Lively believes that the retaliation campaign led by Crisis PR used third-party advocates and seeding of content on social media platforms to defame her. When her lawyers asked defendants for communications with content creators like Andy Signore, defendants produced 0 documents as of August, despite multiple requests, and despite defendants identifying Signore as someone they communicated with. So the lawyers said, if defendants won't produce their communications with Signore, we will subpoena Signore directly and get his copies. So it's actually because of the Wayfarer parties not producing their evidence that Andy Signore was subpoenaed. So then Andy Signore files a motion to quash, which is when he made that video from the beach, thanking Blake for how much money he's made out of her. He claimed journalist privilege, and there was lots of back and forth and an in-camera review. In his filing, Andy described himself as the founder and CEO of PopCorned Planet Inc., which he describes as a publicly accessible news and commentary channel with nearly 1 million subscribers and a large daily viewership, hosted on Popcorn Planet's designated YouTube channel. Signore described himself as Popcorn Planet's main host, investigative reporter, and paid employee with an extensive experience in journalism and entertainment news reporting. So his claim was that as a journalist, he had protective rights, preventing him from having to turn over his news gathering materials, i.e. his direct messages from the defendant's lawyer and crisis publicist. Well, according to this practicing lawyer who posted on Threads under More with MJ, to claim privilege as a journalist, you must expressly invoke the privilege, you can't just ignore, and was asked to create a privilege log, which is a detailed document describing what is withheld. As a journalist, Andy bears the burden of proving the privilege applies. A blanket assertion of privilege is insufficient. Rather, a party asserting privilege must establish the privilege for each document withheld. You can't just say everything is privileged, trust me. So what she's saying is Andy's legal argument didn't cut it. So to qualify for journalistic privilege, you must qualify as a professional journalist under the law, and more importantly, can be overcome if the other side meets a 3-part test. Information is highly relevant and necessary to the case. Tick. Information is unavailable from other sources. Tick. There is a compelling need for disclosure. Tick, tick, tick. So if all 3 of those needs are met, there's no privilege. This standard applies even when the source of the information is not confidential. So the court had to answer, does Popcorn Planet qualify for journalist privilege under Florida law? And even if he does, did Blake Lively overcome the privilege by meeting the Miller test? And question 3, did Popcorn Planet follow the rules for claiming privilege? Adequate privilege log. Florida law protects professional journalists working for newspapers, news journals, news agencies, wire services, radio/TV stations, networks, or news magazines. The court found Popcorn Planet doesn't fit any of these. They said there were 3 problems. 1, it was the wrong type of medium. A YouTube channel is clearly not a newspaper or news magazine under plain and ordinary meaning, and Andy Signore claims to be self-employed as the owner, founder, CEO, host, editor and producer of his Popcorn Planet YouTube channel. The judge said he had no editorial standards compared to outlets such as Associated Press, New York Times, BuzzFeed, and that nothing submitted by him suggests that its show practices the editorial standards normally associated with a professional news organization. And it showed a load of dictionary definitions of newspaper, news agency, and journal. Result, the court said privilege does not apply. Additionally, the judge did an in-camera review when he saw the correspondence for himself and said responsive materials are directly relevant and material to Lively's claim. The claim that defendants orchestrated a campaign to defame her with third parties. Quote, these materials go to the heart of the matter, aka this is the evidence we've been looking for and he's been trying to hide it. Result, Lively overcame privilege. So what the judge found in the in-camera review, which is a private read of some of the documents before deciding, was that one of the documents he read was a 6-month-long 89-page text message conversation between Signore and a defendant in the case. The judge said yes, this needs to be produced, and the strange privilege log below was just not adequate. So Andy Signore's been lying to get out of it. He's been concealing pages of evidence which is relevant to the case, and now he's been ordered to disclose it no later than December 17th, 2025. That's in 2 weeks. And what's funny is that Lively's lawyers for this order is Sigrid McCrawley. She's a partner at Boyes Schiller Flexner, who was written about in Virginia Roberts Giuffre's book, as she represented Virginia Roberts and other victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And she was successful in getting justice for many of their victims, and one of the reasons why she's now in jail and why Jeffrey Epstein was arrested for actual sex crimes. So that's just another thing that makes Andy's narrative look absolutely terrible. How is he going to spin this, and what does it say about the people that still watch his content? Andy Signore even lied that his company was registered as a non-profit. Is that because he does so many GoFundMes? The order said his corporation was administratively dissolved in 2024, but he reinstated it as an LLC in October 2025. On what Popcorn Planet is this man's information credible? And the judge said counsel for Popcorn Planet is incorrect on the law, failed to show that the subpoenaed communications were privileged, and produced no privilege log until ordered to do so 3 months after receiving service of the subpoena. So it's not looking good for Andy Signore, it's not looking good for the other content creators, the tag PR defendants, Brian Friedman, and of course Jed Wallace, the little slimy weasel, who work or have worked for Jake and Logan Paul, Drake, Rebel Wilson, Mr. Beast, Johnny Depp, because all these people have been trying to convince us and been paid thousands of dollars through manipulating algorithms and using people like Andy Signore that this all happened organically because everyone hated Blake Lively and she took over a movie, apparently from Sony and Wayfarer Production, and they're failing to acknowledge the much bigger issue of how our algorithms are dominated by AI channels and people who use conspiracy theorists with very little factual basis as a source. They're trying to get rid of actual journalists and replace them with unhinged content creators, however big their audience is. The more deceitful your content is, the more popular it becomes, as long as you have people like this working behind the scenes. I did make a long video laying out how the SEO manipulation practice with the creation of alt social media accounts and websites, the hiring of secret surveillance agents, and engaging with troll farms goes all the way back to Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein. But people like Andy Signore from Popcorn Planet are actively working to bring down the Me Too movement along with some absolute psychopaths, and they're on the wrong side of history. And so that's why it's really important we see some legal justice in this case. And this is one step in the right direction.